All right, in equation number 2, you're going to solve quadratic equations and you're going to use the quadratic formula. So remember the quadratic formula is this. It's the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All of this is being divided by 2a. So in this quadratic equation, when using quadratic formula, you want to make sure that the equation is in standard form. So it has to look like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And so the coefficient of x squared is a, coefficient of x is b, and your constant is c. So this equation is in standard form and it's in descending order. So the coefficient of x squared is 1, so a is 1. Coefficient of x is a negative 3, so b is negative 3. And your constant is c in this case, which is 5. And so you're going to take these values and we plug into the formula. So my variable is x. You're going to say x equal the opposite. Remember, this says the opposite of b. So b is negative 3. The opposite of a negative 3 is a positive 3, plus or minus the square root of b, and I'll put that in parentheses, negative 3 squared. Now remember, b squared is never negative. So b squared will either be positive or 0. Minus 4 times a is 1, and then c is 5. All of that, so you got to make sure you do it like this. All of this, not just this, all of this. So that division symbol right here needs to be extended. All of this is being divided by 2 times a, and a is 1. All right, so all I did at this point was just substitute all these numbers into the formula. That's what we get. Now let's go ahead and simplify the radicand, or the discriminant. And so negative 3 squared, negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Remember, b squared is always going to be positive or 0. Never is it going to be negative. So I get 3 plus or minus the square root of 9. And then minus 4 times 1 times 5 is 20. So you get 9 minus 20 divided by 2 times 1 is 2. Equal, let's simplify the radicand, or the discriminant. So I get 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 20 is negative 11, divided by 2. And we have to remember, we can simplify the square root of negative 11 in this sense. So we know that the square root of a negative 11 is the square root of a negative 1 times the square root of 11. And we know that the square root of negative 1 is defined to be the imaginary unit I. Now the square root of 11 I cannot simplify, so I'm just going to leave it as square root of 11. So this part here becomes 3 plus or minus I square root of 11, all divided by 2. And so there's your solution. You could have also written it as 2 separate solutions. You could have said 3 plus I square root of 11, all divided by 2, comma, and then 3 minus I square root of 11 divided by 2. So any of those would have been correct. All right, so that's number 1. All right, and so in number 2, we have 2x squared plus 3x minus 3 equals 0. So we have this quadratic equation is in standard form. 0 is on one side, and it's in descending order. So a in this case, remember, a is the coefficient of x squared, so a is 2. B is a coefficient of x, which is 3. And c is your constant, which is a negative 3. And as you're going to take these values, you're going to substitute into the formula. So I get x equal, this says the opposite of b. So the b is 3, the opposite of 3 is a negative 3. Plus or minus the square root of b, which is 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 3. All of this is being divided by 2 times a, and a is 2. So make sure you do all of this being divided by 2 times a. And you must say 2 times a, 2 times 2 in this case. So let me put the equal here. So it'll be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of. So let's simplify the discriminant, or the radicand. 3 times 3 is 9. All right, a negative 4 times 2 times a negative 3 is a positive 24. All of that is being divided by 2 times 2, which is 4, equal negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 24 is 33, divided by 4. And I cannot simplify the square root of 33. There's no perfect square other than 1 that goes into 33. And so there's it. There's your answer. And again, if you wanted to write it as two separate solutions, you would say negative 3 plus the square root of 33 divided by 4, comma, negative 3 minus the square root of 33 divided by 4. So any of these is correct. But this is your work that you have to show. So remember, you have to show the work like you were told to do. All right, so that is the key to quiz number 2 in solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula.